There's a particular kind of peace that settles over a house when you think you've done everything right. It hums low, steady, like the refrigerator at night, a noise you don't really hear until it's gone. That was my marriage to Hannah. 13 years, 2 kids, and a home that smelled like pine-scented floor cleaner and coffee in the mornings. Everything in its place. Everything on track. Or so I thought. I'm not going to tell you we had a perfect marriage, because, let's be honest, who does? But I thought it was solid. I thought I was solid. I worked my ass off to keep it that way. I put in the hours at the firm to make sure we didn't have to stress about bills or the kids' futures. I deferred to Hannah when it came to the little stuff, what color we painted the dining room, what school programs we signed the kids up for, because that's what you do when you're partners. You compromise. You divide and conquer. You trust. I see it differently now. Hindsight is cruel like that. Looking back, it's easy to spot the gaps I'd ignored, the warning signs I dismissed as the everyday friction of marriage. She'd started pulling away long before the truth came out. But I didn't notice it for what it was. Maybe I didn't want to notice. There was this day last year, I remember it so vividly now. I'd come home late from work, my tie loose, exhaustion settling deep in my bones. The kids were already in bed, and Hannah was sitting on the couch in her robe, scrolling through her phone. She barely glanced at me when I walked in. "Hey," I said, dropping my briefcase by the door. "Hey," she replied, without looking up. I kissed her on the top of her head and made some offhand comment about work being hell. She nodded but didn't ask about my day. She used to ask. She used to care about the answers. I told myself she was tired. We were all tired. But now I wonder, was that the moment? Or was it just one of 100 moments when I missed the shift happening beneath my feet? When the foundation of us began to crumble, and I was too distracted, or too complacent, to notice. The thing is, I thought I knew her. I thought I knew what she wanted, what made her happy. And I thought I was giving it to her, a good home, a stable life, someone to lean on. I didn't realize that stability might feel suffocating to someone who never got to make the big decisions. I didn't realize how much power I held, even when I wasn't wielding it intentionally. But he gave her that, didn't he? That younger man who looked at her like she hung the moon, who made her feel like she had the reins for once. She hasn't said it outright, but I can see it now, the why behind what she did. It wasn't just about intimate or excitement. It was about control. About her feeling like she had the upper hand in at least one part of her life. I don't even know his name yet. I haven't asked. The confession was bare-boned and brutal, a razor blade hidden in the smooth glide of her words. "I've been seeing someone," she said. Just like that. Like she was admitting to a speeding ticket. And I sat there, stunned, trying to piece together how my wife, the mother of my children, the woman who once laughed so hard she snorted on our first date, could do this to us. To me. But even in the thick of my anger, my disbelief, a small voice whispered, "You should have seen this coming." I hate that voice. I hate that it might be right. I don't know where to go from here. Do I fight for her? Do I let her go? All I know is that the life I thought I had is gone, shattered into pieces I can't seem to hold on to. It's funny how betrayal doesn't just hurt, it humbles you. It's a mirror you never wanted, showing you all the angles of yourself you've been ignoring. Since the night Hannah told me, I've been walking around with that mirror strapped to my back, the weight of it pressing down on me, forcing me to see things I'd rather not. I've been trying to understand why. Not just why she did it, but why I didn't see it sooner. Why I didn't stop it. Why I thought we were fine when we weren't. It's the not knowing that's the worst. The endless replay of scenarios, moments, words exchanged. Like if I rewind the tape enough times, I'll spot the exact moment everything broke. Or maybe I'll see how I broke it. I asked her once, in the days after her confession, why him? I didn't want to know, not really, but the words tumbled out of me before I could stop them. She hesitated, looking down at her hands like the answer might be hiding in her palms. Then she said something that's been ringing in my head ever since. He makes me feel seen. Seen. The word stung, sharp and immediate, like a slap across the face. Seen. As if I hadn't been looking at her every single day of our lives together. As if I hadn't loved her through the stretch marks, the sleepless nights, the arguments, and the laughter. I wanted to scream at her, "I've always seen you." But I didn't. Because deep down, I knew it wasn't true. Not the way she meant. There's a difference, I think, between seeing someone as part of your life and seeing them as their own person. Somewhere along the way, I started seeing Hannah as my wife, my partner, the mother of my kids, the other half of this machine we'd built together. But I stopped seeing her as Hannah. I know now that she wanted more than that. She wanted to be someone's world, not just part of it. And that's what he gave her. This younger man, this stranger who I imagine with a smooth face and eager eyes, he handed her something I didn't know she needed. He made her feel powerful. I keep thinking about all the times I brushed her off without meaning to. The times she tried to talk about her work, her friends, her interests, and I half listened, distracted by my phone or the TV or the mountain of emails waiting for me. The times she deferred to me on decisions because it was easier, not because she wanted to. I thought I was being a good husband, taking the lead, making life easier for her. But maybe I was just taking her choices away. When she told me, she didn't cry. I think that's what gutted me the most. She was calm, collected, almost businesslike, as if she'd practiced the words 100 times in her head before letting them spill out. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice low but steady. "But it did. And I can't undo it. Can't undo it." Those words sit heavy in my chest, suffocating me. I've tried to imagine their moments together, though it's a kind of masochism I wouldn't wish on anyone. I picture her smiling at him the way she used to smile at me, soft, warm, full of promise. I picture him looking at her like she's something extraordinary, like she's a secret he's been lucky enough to uncover. And I hate him for it. But I also hate myself. For being the kind of husband who made her crave that look from someone else. The truth is, power wasn't something I ever thought about in our marriage. I didn't see it as a game with winners and losers. I thought we were equals, working toward the same goals. But now I see how uneven the scales were, how much of the decision-making rested on my shoulders, whether I wanted it to or not. I made the big calls. I brought in the money. I held the map. And she followed. Maybe she got tired of following. Maybe she wanted to hold the map for once. And maybe that's what he gave her, the illusion that she was steering the ship. I say, illusion, because deep down, I don't think it's real. What kind of power is it, really, when it's built on secrecy and stolen moments? When you're sneaking around like teenagers, lying to your husband, lying to yourself? But who am I to judge? The truth is, she was willing to risk everything for that feeling. For him. And what does that say about me? What does that say about us? It's been weeks now, and I'm still sleeping on the couch. Not because she asked me to, but because I can't bear to lie beside her, knowing what I know. She doesn't fight me on it. She doesn't fight for much of anything these days. I told her I need time to figure out what comes next. What I didn't tell her is that I'm not sure there's a next for us anymore. Because how do you rebuild something when the foundation was never as solid as you thought? How do you trust someone again when they've already shown you they can walk away? The power's shifted now. I feel it in every conversation we have, every glance we exchange. She's waiting for me to decide what happens to us. The irony isn't lost on me, that after all this, the control is back in my hands. But it doesn't feel like power. It feels like grief. The silence between us has grown louder. It fills the house now, seeping into every corner, every conversation, every interaction. It wasn't always this way. I remember when our silence was comfortable, shared, the kind you could sit in and still feel connected. Now it's different. Now it feels like we're both waiting for something to break. The kids don't notice, or at least I hope they don't. We've been careful not to let this spill over into their lives. I still show up to soccer practices and parent-teacher conferences. She still makes dinner and helps with homework. We're doing this delicate dance, keeping the facade intact for their sake, but I can feel the cracks spreading underneath. I've been watching her lately, in a way I haven't in years. Noticing the little things, like the way she tucks her hair behind her ear when she's lost in thought or the faint crease between her eyebrows when she's stressed. I used to know what she was thinking just by looking at her. Now, she's a stranger to me. Sometimes I wonder if she's still thinking about him, if he's a constant presence in her mind, the way she's become in mine. I wonder if she misses him. If she's waiting for me to make a decision so she can finally go to him without guilt, without the weight of what we've built holding her back. There's a bitterness in me now that I don't recognize, a voice in my head that whispers things I don't want to admit. Like how much I want her to hurt the way I'm hurting. How much I want her to feel this same hollow ache in her chest. I hate that part of me, but I can't shut it off. The hardest part isn't the anger or even the betrayal. It's the questions that won't stop swirling in my head. Was this affair inevitable? Did I fail her, or did she fail me? Would it have been someone else if not him? Or was he the perfect storm, the one who walked into her life at just the right time to expose every weak point in our marriage? I've been trying to piece together the timeline, though she's been careful with her answers. She told me it started a few months ago, but I don't know what that means. A few months of what? Texting? Meetings? Late-night confessions in the dark? Was he there when I kissed her goodbye in the mornings? Did he see her smile in ways I haven't seen in years? I tried asking once, but the answers gutted me, so I stopped. It wasn't planned, she said. It just happened. As if love and loyalty were things that could slip away without her noticing. But it wasn't love. At least that's what she claims. It wasn't about him, she told me one night, her voice barely above a whisper. It was about me. About her. The words echoed in my head, bouncing around until they settled somewhere deep, somewhere I don't like to examine too closely. Because if it wasn't about him, then what does that mean for me? She said it wasn't about him being younger, though I can't help but fixate on that detail. He's probably full of energy, ambition, and all the time in the world to give her his undivided attention. Meanwhile, I've spent years coming home late, collapsing onto the couch, and falling asleep halfway through a movie because the day drained me dry. Was that what she needed? Someone who didn't come with the weight of responsibility? Someone who could make her feel light and unburdened, even if only for a few hours at a time? I don't know. And the not knowing is killing me. I've caught myself looking in the mirror more than I should, searching for signs of whatever it was she stopped seeing in me. The lines on my face, the gray at my temples, I can't compete with the version of me she probably sees in him. The one who still has time to be spontaneous, exciting, new. And yet, even in the midst of my anger, my sadness, my confusion, there's a small part of me that understands. That sees how we got here, even if I hate it. I built a life for us, but somewhere along the way, I forgot to check if it was the life she wanted. I've been thinking about power a lot lately. How it shifts, how it controls us in ways we don't even realize. For years, I held the power in our marriage without knowing it. I made the money, made the decisions, made the plans. And I told myself it was what she wanted, what we both wanted. But now I see how that dynamic left her feeling small, invisible, trapped. I see how she must have craved something, anything, that made her feel bigger, stronger, more in control of her own life. I see it, but that doesn't mean I forgive it. I don't know if I can. Last night, I asked her if she still loved me. I didn't plan to ask, the question just tumbled out, raw and exposed, leaving me holding my breath as I waited for her answer. She hesitated. That pause was like a knife twisting in my gut. Yes, she said eventually. I do. But her voice was shaky, uncertain. And I couldn't tell if she was trying to convince me or herself. I didn't press her. I just nodded and left the room. But as I sat there in the dark, staring at nothing, I realized something that scared me more than anything else. I'm not sure if I still love her either. Or if I just love the idea of her, the idea of us, that I've been clinging to for so long. And that might be the most painful realization of all. I spent this morning sitting in the car, parked at the edge of the grocery store lot, gripping the steering wheel like it might hold me together. I was supposed to be running errands, picking up milk and cereal, but I couldn't make myself get out. The thought of smiling at the cashier, of making small talk with someone who didn't know what kind of wreck I'd become, was too much. It's strange how the world doesn't stop, even when yours has. People go about their lives, oblivious, while you sit in the rubble of what you thought your life was. That's what I feel like these days, rubble. Something collapsed, something broken, waiting to be cleared away. She's been trying lately, in her own quiet way. Making coffee for me in the mornings, asking about my day, leaving notes in my lunch like she used to. Little things that would have felt sweet a few months ago, but now they feel hollow. Forced. I don't know if she's trying to fix us or just ease her guilt. Last night, after the kids were in bed, we sat in the living room, both pretending to read but really just existing in the same space. The silence stretched until it was unbearable, and finally, I broke it. Did you love him? The question came out harsher than I intended, sharp and jagged like glass. She flinched but didn't look up from her book. No, she said, quietly. I didn't believe her. Or maybe I didn't want to believe her, because the alternative, that she destroyed us for something that wasn't even love, made it all feel even more senseless. Then why? I pressed. My voice cracked on the last word, and I hated myself for it, hated how desperate I sounded. She closed her book slowly, setting it down on the coffee table, and looked at me with those tired, sad eyes that I've come to resent. I told you, she said. It wasn't about him. It was about feeling something again. Feeling like I mattered. I opened my mouth to argue, to ask her if raising our kids and building a life together wasn't enough to make her feel like she mattered. But I stopped myself, because deep down, I knew the answer. She mattered to me. She always has. But I didn't show her in the ways she needed. Why didn't you tell me? I asked instead. My voice was quieter this time, almost a whisper. Why didn't you say you felt this way before it got to this point? She sighed, looking away, her gaze fixed on the floor like she was searching for an answer down there. I tried, she said finally. In my own way. But you were always so busy, so sure of everything. It felt easier to keep it to myself. There it was. The indictment I've been bracing for. I was too busy. Too sure. Too much of the man I thought I needed to be and not enough of the man she needed me to be. But hearing it didn't make it easier. It didn't make me feel closer to understanding. It wasn't about hurting you, she added, her voice soft, almost apologetic. I didn't mean for it to hurt you. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. You didn't mean for it to hurt me? What did you think would happen, Hannah? Did you think I wouldn't find out? Or that I wouldn't care if I did? Her face crumpled then, and for the first time since she told me, I saw tears. She wiped at her eyes quickly, like she was ashamed to cry in front of me. I don't know, she whispered. I wasn't thinking about you. I wasn't thinking about anyone. I was just lost. Lost. The word hung between us, heavy and unresolved. I wanted to tell her that I'd been lost too. That marriage isn't easy for anyone. That there were nights I lay awake next to her, wondering if I was doing enough, being enough. But I didn't. Because that felt like a betrayal of my own pain, like giving her permission to rewrite the story of what she'd done. The truth is, I can see the logic of her choices even as I despise them. I can understand how someone could look at their life, their routine, and feel trapped. How they could want to reach out for something, anything, that made them feel alive again. But understanding isn't the same as forgiving. She asked me last night what I wanted. If I wanted to stay. If I wanted to try. I didn't know how to answer her. Because the truth is, I don't know what I want anymore. Some days, I think I want to leave. Pack a bag, walk out the door, and start over somewhere far away from the memory of this. But then I think about the kids. About what it would do to them. About how much I still love being their father, even if I'm no longer sure I want to be her husband. Other days, I think I want to stay. To fight for what we had, to rebuild something new, something stronger. But then I see her across the table, her eyes filled with regret and something I can't quite name, and I wonder if it's already too late. What scares me most is the third option, the one I haven't said out loud, even to myself. What if I stay, not because I want to, but because it's easier than leaving? What if this becomes our life? Two people bound by shared history and obligation, but nothing more. And if that's the case, who am I becoming? A man who stays for the kids. A man who swallows his anger and buries his sadness because the alternative feels like too much work. I don't know. All I know is that every choice feels like a loss. Every path forward feels like it costs more than I'm willing, or able, to give. And the silence between us keeps growing, filling the spaces where answers should be. This morning, I sat at the kitchen table and watched the sunlight spill through the window, catching the steam rising from my coffee. It was so quiet, I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. The kids were upstairs getting ready for school, their laughter faint and distant, like it belonged to someone else's life. Hannah sat across from me, her hands curled around her own mug, her eyes trained on the table. We didn't say anything. I think we've both run out of words. It's strange, isn't it? How silence can say more than any argument ever could. I wanted to ask her if she still thinks about him, if he crosses her mind when she's brushing her teeth or folding laundry or sitting here, across from me, pretending that life is normal. I wanted to ask her if she misses him, if she regrets giving him up now that I know. But I didn't ask. I think I was too scared of the answers. Later, after the kids were at school and the house was ours again, she broke the silence. I want to go to counseling, she said. Her voice was soft but steady, like she'd rehearsed the words a dozen times before saying them out loud. I didn't respond right away. Counseling. The word felt heavy, loaded with promises I wasn't sure I could make. I know what it means, digging through the wreckage of what we've become, exposing every fracture, every fault line. It means holding a magnifying glass up to both of us, looking at the parts we've hidden from each other, from ourselves. And part of me wonders if I even want to. What's the point? I asked finally, my voice sharper than I intended. What's the point of fixing something if it's already broken? Her face fell, but she didn't look away. It's not broken, she said. Not completely. I mean, we're still here, aren't we? That word, here, felt like a challenge. Yes, we're still here. But why? Because we're fighting for each other, or because we're afraid of what's on the other side of this? I didn't answer her. I couldn't. Instead, I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and left. I spent the rest of the day driving, taking roads I didn't know, winding through neighborhoods that weren't mine. I passed houses with manicured lawns, swing sets in the yards, and couples walking hand in hand. I wondered how many of them were just like us, holding it together on the surface while everything underneath was crumbling. Eventually, I ended up at the park. The same one where we used to take the kids when they were small, when everything felt simpler. I sat on a bench and watched the leaves fall, spinning slowly to the ground. I thought about the life we've built, the memories tucked into every corner of our house, every photograph on the walls. The time we spent repainting the nursery when we found out Emily was a girl. The nights we stayed up late, laughing over wine and bad movies. The way she looked at me on our wedding day, like I was the only man in the world. And I thought about now. The distance between us. The questions I can't bring myself to ask. The resentment simmering just beneath the surface. How do you reconcile those two versions of us? The couple we were and the strangers we've become? I went home before the kids got back from school. Hannah was in the living room, folding laundry. She glanced up when I walked in, her eyes full of questions she didn't ask. "I'll do it," I said. Her brow furrowed. "Do what?" "Counseling," I said, my voice flat, emotionless. "I'll go." She blinked, surprised, like she hadn't expected me to agree. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. I wanted to feel something in that moment, relief, hope, something, but all I felt was exhaustion. Because the truth is, I don't know if counseling can fix us. I don't know if I even want it to. I love her. I know that. I love the woman she was, the woman I married, the woman who made me a father. But I don't know if I can love this version of her, the one who let me believe everything was fine while she built a secret life with someone else. And I don't know if she can love this version of me, the one who's bitter and angry and so deeply unsure of where to go from here. The truth is, part of me doesn't want to forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because forgiveness feels like letting go of the anger that's been holding me together. Without it, I don't know who I am anymore. But there's another part of me, a quieter part, that wonders if this is the moment we start again. Not as the people we were, but as the people we are now. Flawed, fractured, trying. I don't know which part of me will win. That night, as we lay in bed, I turned to her and asked the question I've been avoiding for weeks. "Why are you still here?" She looked at me, her eyes wide and glistening, and said, "Because I still want us. Even if you don't believe it right now, I do." I didn't respond. I didn't know how to. Instead, I turned onto my back and stared at the ceiling, her words echoing in my head. I still want us. I don't know if I believe her. But I guess counseling will tell me if I should.